Astronaut Scott Kelly, My Journey to the Stars. And there he is right there. It's a true story. It's been 340 days since I set foot on Earth. I've spent almost a full year living and working on the International Space Station. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I miss fresh air and the feel of rain on my face. I miss hugging my daughters and my girlfriend, Amiko. At last, it's time to get into the spaceship that will take me home. I say my goodbyes to the team who has become my space family. Then I climb into my seat. The spaceship is so small, my knees are folded against my chest. My two Russian crewmates sit so close to me, our elbows touch. We strap ourselves in tight. It's going to be a wild ride. Look how cramped they are. My perfect copy, my identical twin, is waiting for me back on Earth. My brother Mark and I are the only twins in NASA history. We were born on February 21st, 1964 in Orange, New Jersey, and we grew up in West Orange, the same town where Thomas Edison made many of his inventions. Mark was born 6 minutes before me, and since then, we have spent our lives as partners, always ready for an adventure. We grew up surrounded by family. There were Kelly cousins up and down our block, and it felt so safe that Mom sent Mark and me across the street to mail a letter when we were only 5 years old. We walked to the corner to cross just like Mom taught us, and after we mailed the letter, I walked back to the corner. But Mark, always a daredevil, crossed in the middle of the street, and then I got the scare of my life. My brother was hit by a car. Screech! Mark hurt his head. He was rushed to the hospital while I had to stay with our Uncle Joe and eat liver for dinner. Yuck. Mark got better and came home with a great story, and I felt like I got the worst deal. Mark and I had always had a talent for finding trouble and taking risks, and sometimes we got hurt. But every time we took a risk, we pushed our limits and aimed higher. This was great training for the biggest risk of all, becoming astronauts. Every weekend, Mark and I stayed with Grandma and Pop-Pop so Mom and Dad could go out. We loved our special routine, breakfast at a local diner and a day trip. New Jersey is the garden state, and there were always amazing gardens to visit. Years later, I'd think about Grandma and Pop-Pop as I took care of the flowers on the ISS. International Space Station. At home, every day was different. Our parents didn't always get along, and we never knew when a fight might start. It was scary when they argued, and Mark and I would hide in our room. Watching our parents fight turned Mark and me into peacemakers. We can get along with almost everyone, and we learn to stay calm in the toughest of times. This has helped us each lead our own cruise in space. You never know when your problems can become your strengths. Dad was a police officer. When I was 11 years old, Mom decided to become a police officer too. In the 1970s, police departments had just started to let women join the force. But first, they had to pass the same tests that men did. My parents may have fought a lot, but Dad still had Mom's back, and he set up a training course in our backyard. I agreed to be Mom's practice dummy, pretending to be hurt so she could drag me to safety. The hardest part of the course was the wall Mom had to climb. Every day she tried to climb over that wall. At first she couldn't even touch the top, and it took Mom a long time, but she finally did it. Soon after, Mom passed the test and became one of the first female cops in New Jersey. Her success showed Mark and me that if we had a plan, with small steps, we could turn a big dream into something special. I still didn't know what my dream was. I was a terrible student. I couldn't sit still, I couldn't listen to the teacher, and I couldn't stop watching the squirrels out the window. Even so, Mr. Tarnoff, my principal, believed in me. He begged me not to give up, and years later, he was invited to both my space shuttle launches. During high school, Mark and I joined the volunteer ambulance unit. Every night was different. We never knew what to expect. And riding in the ambulance, sirens screaming, was exciting. And most important, we liked helping people. I had finally found something I loved. I wanted to become a doctor, but how was I ever going to get through college and medical school when I could barely sit still? One day, I went to the bookstore to buy gum, and a book cover caught my eye. It was The Right Stuff by Tom Wolfe. "Pick me up, open me," it called. That book changed my life forever. It was so exciting, full of daring pilots risking everything to test the newest planes. How fast could they go? How high could they fly? Sometimes pilots crashed, sometimes they soared, and the best became the Mercury 7, the first NASA astronauts. I finally found my dream. I wanted to be a test pilot. And thanks to Mom, I knew how to make my dream real. I would create my plan. I would follow it step by step. Step 1, do my homework. Now that I had a goal, I was able to work hard and graduate from college. Step 2, join the Navy. Here I could learn how to fly, and Mark started flight school too. I quickly learned that flying fast was fun, but it wasn't easy. I took lots of risks as a jet pilot. I needed to see how fast a plane could fly and how good a pilot I could be. Flying a fighter jet was so hard. The first time I tried to land on a moving ship, I couldn't do it. But I didn't give up. In the end, I flew faster than the speed of sound. Then I was unstoppable. I wanted to fly higher and higher, and to do that, I needed to go to space. Step 3, become an astronaut at last. Mark and I both joined NASA in 1996. Our class was so large it was called the Sardines. And there he is, and there is his twin brother. No, there's he is, and there's his twin brother. We each flew into space 4 times. We flew on space shuttles, a Russian spaceship called the Soyuz, and the ISS, but we never went to space together in case something went wrong. Space travel was our biggest risk of all. I flew the Space Shuttle Discovery on a mission to fix the Hubble Space Telescope. And I led the Space Shuttle Endeavour on a mission to make the ISS bigger. All the space shuttles stopped flying in 2011, and now the only way to reach the ISS is to ride on the Russian Soyuz. NASA's next big mission is to send astronauts to Mars. But first, they need to see what happens when human bodies are in space for a long time. Twin astronauts were perfect for this job, so NASA asked me to spend a full year in space. No American had ever stayed in space that long. 1 twin astronaut in space, me, and 1 twin on Earth, Mark, did the same tests, and NASA would continue to study us over time and compare the results. After my year in space, I stretched almost 2 inches and my eyesight got worse, but I am mostly back to normal now. Living on the ISS is very different from living on Earth. There's no gravity, so you float around. And floating sounds like fun, and it is, but tools you're using float away, and that can be so annoying. Even your body can float away when you are sleeping. That's why the crew has to sleep in bags that hang on the wall or ceiling, drink through a special straw, and use a special bathroom that is like a vacuum cleaner. My crew on the ISS was so busy. NASA told us what to do all day so we could fit everything in, and they told us when to eat, when to exercise, and when to work in the lab. We had 400 experiments to run, and many of them studied the effects of zero gravity on the lab rats, the crew, and the 20 mice on board. We even grew plants in space. I like to water the flowers, and it reminded me of seeing gardens with Grandma and Pop, and I liked eating the lettuce even more. We were the first crew to eat fresh vegetables grown on the ISS. NASA did its best to keep our crew safe, but the ISS is at risk every minute. Our crew faced extra dangers during my first year in space. First, we lost 2 unmanned ships that were bringing fresh food and supplies when one crashed in April and another one exploded in June. Second, the ISS was almost hit and destroyed by space junk in July. And third, we had to make an emergency spacewalk to fix the ISS in December. Earth meant everything to the crew while we were so far away, and we loved to look out the window at our beautiful planet. From our perch 220 miles above Earth, we saw big cities glittering in the blackness of night and the sun shining on the rivers and oceans in many brilliant shades of blue. Our crew wanted to share the beauty, and we hoped that our photos would inspire people to protect our amazing home. Cool, look at the Bahamas. And there's New Orleans. Finally, my mission is done, and it feels good to know that all the risks I've taken brought humans one step closer to Mars. Now it's time to go home, and our Soyuz capsule is falling back to Earth at almost 1,000 feet per second. Gravity presses down on us, and it's hard to breathe, and it feels like going over Niagara Falls in a barrel, but while you're on fire. The parachute opens, and the landing is so hard my head slams into a seat cushion, and the hatch opens, and strong arms help me out. The fresh air smells amazing. NASA pokes and prods me, and after many tests, I'm cleared to return to Texas. I land in Houston and give my whole family a big bear hug, and when I get home, I walk straight to my yard and jump in the pool with all my clothes on. The sights, smells, and the sounds of Earth surround me. My year in space ends with my first shower and a first night's sleep in a bed since I left the ISS. What an amazing journey.